Okay, great. I'm going to start the meeting tonight at 5:33. Can I get someone to make a motion to accept the agenda, please?
So moved.
Thanks, Kevin. Is there a second?
Aye.
Second.
Thank you, Leo and Barbara. All those that approve the agenda, please signify by saying aye.
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 Thank you. All those opposed? Up here. We have an agenda. Perfect. Communications with parents, citizens, and staff. Did either one of you want to talk to us? No? Okay.
I'm gonna admit.
Oh, there's more people.
Yeah,
Okay.
Renee, you have your camera off.
I do. All the more reason. Hold on, let me. But they can. Can they hear us? No, they
Yes,
must-
we can hear you, you just can't see anybody.
Where is?
Oh, you gotta click this button
Oh, yeah.
and go full screen.
All right. Let's see if that works. Yep.
And then
No.
you just gotta set it to the owl with the.
Yep.
Alexa's last name?
Ujer.
No.
Oh.
Alexandra.
Manell.
Alright,
Is
there we
there,
go.
is there anyone
I'll
online
start
who
letting
wants to
people in
speak
in
with
the
us?
living room.
Okay, hearing none, we're gonna move on. Consent agenda. Can I get someone to make a motion?
I'll move to pass the consent agenda.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Barbara. All those in favor of the consent agenda, please signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed? Okay, consent agenda passes. We have a few presentations tonight. The first one is the 2025 Vermont Snapshot Review.
Okay. I will go quickly since we have, since it's just a kind of at a glance. But I wanted to make sure that with the information literally hot off the presses today and encouraging people to, choose their own adventure and go on the state website for the snapshot, and I think also the state dashboard where the information, the data information is behind that. I encourage people to go and look for this information in a more, I guess, full way. So I'll go ahead and get started. So everything that we do, every presentation in particular, this particular snapshot is what the state of Vermont is asking us to do as part of our work here as a school district and as a supervisory union. And this particular presentation really is going to revolve our special education and many of our centralized services. So within this presentation, there's going to be, it's just really an explanation of the way that our state addresses our accountability system. So for every state in the union, if you are going to receive any title funds from the federal government, you have to have an accountability system. And the accountability system that Vermont created wraps around these 5 indicators: academic proficiency, personalization, safe and healthy schools, high quality staffing, and investment priorities. For today's presentation, as we move forward, on the snapshot itself, we only have information on academic proficiency, personalization, and high quality staffing. I'm not sure if any more information is going to come later from the state, but that's the information that we have available today. Within each of those indicators, there is typically 4 scores. So in the top right-hand portion of this slide, you'll see that there's some definition or some vocabulary words having to do with the accountability framework. So they're going to measure our current performance as well as our performance compared to the previous year. Then there's also going to be an equity index, and the equity index talks about how our students or how our systems are working when you compare the system's performance for students who are of a particular student group, typically historically marginalized or historically underserved, versus students who are not historically marginalized. And so that when we're talking about what that means, that's what, when we talk about equity, that's what we're gonna be talking about here. Then similarly to the performance change, did we close the gap for that equity, or did the equity gap increase? And so as we get further into the presentation, you'll see that there are particular words that are being used and that there are particular colors that are being used. So if you're doing the highest level of performance or change, it's going to be that bright Kelly green, and it's going to be, the word is going to be exceeding or excelling. If you're meeting the expectations from the state, it's going to be that light blue, and it'll either be meeting or improving. If you're close to the expectation, then it's going to be that yellowish, and it's going to be approaching and not improving. And then if you're not meeting the expectation, or you're going the wrong direction in closing the equity index expectation, then it's going to be that red.
Can I ask a question already?
Yes, sir.
Current equity index, green doesn't necessarily indicate that there's been caught up to the median. Okay, that's
Hold on, I'm trying to close the...
it's terrible grammar, but it doesn't indicate that the historically underserved have caught up entirely to the median.
Correct. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's caught up, but that you're going in a direction at a higher rate than is expected than you would. So like, let's say for example, you made a jump of, like, you have a wide gap, but you jumped 8 or 10 points.
Okay.
Then that would be an example of something that you would be excelling.
Okay, thank you.
So I'm not going to talk a lot about this particular slide because there's a lot of text, but this gives you a little bit of a background on what the numbers that you may see, but also the kind of the categories that you're going to see, because there's a lot that goes into that. So you'll see that the tests from the VT CAP will go in there. How are we doing on those content standards? There's also the WIDA test, which is that English language proficiency. We'll also look at the graduation rate, the 4-year or the 6-year graduation rate, and then 2 components of college and career readiness, which are, how well did you do on college and career tests, and are you also having a good college and career outcome within 16 months of graduation. So all of that goes into our snapshot, into just the academic portion. So one other little bit of information having to do with so all of these things that you see on the previous slide, they all have weights attributed to them. And so you can see that math and reading and graduation have the highest rates, or have the highest weights, I'm sorry. And then science counts for some, your English proficiency counts for some, and then the readiness assessments and outcomes counts for some as well. But so when we're talking about all these categories, they're not all weighted the same. So just to kick it right off. So when it comes to how we are doing, according to the state's, how the supervisory union is doing as a whole, so our academic overall current performance shows that we are approaching the standard that they are expecting a supervisory union to have, and that our performance change is improving. So that number that you see, that 2.19 that's underneath that, is measured out of 5. And there again, when we come back in next month, I can give a huge, we can do a much longer presentation about what these numbers mean. But ideally, because that 2.19, they want us to be closer to 2.8. But the fact that we haven't dropped below 1.87, we're doing pretty good. So, and again, that's a scale score combining all of that information that you saw on the previous slide. So for all of our main content areas, you see that we're approaching the expected level of performance. But when we consider how we are doing, we're not necessarily doing the level of increase that the state would like for us to see with the performance. So with our graduation rate, we are meeting the level when you look at our 4-year and our 6-year graduation. And according to them, the number that we've jumped, and I can share that we went from 72% to 79% between the class of 2024 and 2023 and 2024, because graduation, the CCR outcomes and the CCR performance assessments are lagging indicators, so they're not. I can't believe I have a misspelling on here. I totally apologize for that. But I do. Within is not spelled the way that it's displayed on the board. I apologize.
With it.
Yeah, with it.
Doesn't count if you catch it yourself.
Okay, I'm sorry. So our CCR outcomes, we are not meeting the state level expectations. So CCR is a short way of saying college and career readiness outcomes. And that can be things like licenses. It could be performing having a college class within 16 months. It could be lots of different measures that show that you are ready for life itself. And so right now that performance is not meeting, and we're not improving. For our performance assessments, we are getting better. So that's going to be things like our SAT, our AP. And other tests like that, and we're about the same, so we're not improving. And keep in mind, not improving is not the same as declining. So not improving means we're pretty much staying the same. So overall, our summative assessment, or our summative from the state, when you look at all of the 3 categories that they've reported on, we are meeting the expectations that the state has for us. And so I'm not sure. I guess I doubled it there, so I apologize. I was very excited about the graduation rate. But at the end of the day, so that last line where it says summative, the state of Vermont says that based on our performance in 2024, 2025, and the lagging data from 23-24, we are meeting expectations.
Can I just ask you to check the waiting room? There's a couple people that are waiting to get
Okay,
in.
so that would be... Colby, can you check the waiting room, please?
Yes, I had sent you a text, you never made me co-host.
Oh, well then you can't check the waiting room, so give me a second. Sorry about that.
No problem.
Okay, whoops, went too fast. Okay, so I had mentioned earlier that this was our performance and our performance change. Our equity index, so for our ELA and math and our science, when you look at the achievement gaps that we have, our performance gaps, they are not at the level that the state expects us to meet. So that's something that we've mentioned before, and there's another slide in here that we'll talk about. We'll talk a little bit about that later. But when it comes to the change compared to the previous year, with ELA, we should be making that improvement this year as part of our continuous improvement plan with our new curriculum and professional development that go along with it. Math is remaining about the same, but our science, which we test in 5th, 8th, and 11th, that change is excelling compared to what the state is expecting us to do. Next component is the personalization. And so there are 2 components to the personalization, and that's participation in flexible pathways, and that the school is offering flexible pathways. So both of those are an equal weight. So we are doing very well in this category. So our participation is exceeding what the state wants us to be able to do, and our performance change is continuing to go up, which is excellent. So our school, and so this is largely Otter Valley plus Barstow. So our school offerings of flexible pathways we're meeting, and then the equity index, we're meeting the level of expectation for offering those particular things on our campuses.
And flexible pathways are things like the...
Flexible pathways are going to be things like early college. They're also going to be CTE options. They're also going to be things like Muslamu. They're going to be other opportunities that students, if they have they have an individualized way of acquiring the credits that they would like to be able to take on. So like if they had they were able to find their own internship, or they have a job that they are able to justify that would count towards certain credits, they would sign up for a plan within our guidance office, and we would confirm whether or not those things actually meet the definition of flexible pathways.
Can I ask another question?
Sure.
How does it work for students to find their way into those pathways?
So some of the pathways are well known. So like if you're going to go Stafford or Hannaford, that is one. Early college is well known. Muslimu is well known. I can't say for certain, but I would imagine that the guidance office has ways when they speak to their eighth graders or ninth graders or 10th graders as they do those preparations for their signing up for classes, that they have the ability that they're aware of any options that arise. But I would be happy to look more into that.
Stafford recruits as well.
They recruit.
Oh yeah.
Okay. That's great. Thanks.
Something else I'm able to report upon tonight is high quality staffing, and it's unfortunate that Brooke just walked out the door. But she'll tell you, we're doing well. We're doing well here too. So here she comes. So with regard to quality staffing, with what they measure, what they measure here with equal weight is properly licensed teachers and educator retention. What they do at this particular level as well is that they do measure principals. So within these numbers, so as you can see, we're meeting our how we're doing our performance, and our change is actually is improving, or it's being met. So very excited that we are meeting what the state expects us to do. And then not only that, but our change level for educator retention is among the highest. So we're considered excelling there. So now we get to the state will have concerns with schools and districts that have an equity gap. So like if you, for example, if students who are on IEPs or who are on free and reduced lunch have a large performance gap between students who are not on IEPs or not on free and reduced lunch, the state wants to make sure that the school and the district are aware of that. And so what they do, they have created these equity support status. And in this case, fortunately, I only have to report on Equity 1 supports or Equity 1 status because that is the level at where we are. So if you reach Equity 2 or Equity 3, then particularly Equity 3, then the state usually has to step in and coach you through how you can cure what the issues are with Equity 3. But fortunately, we are just at Equity 1. So as the supervisory union, we have...
Question here.
Sure.
Cynically speaking, the easiest way to close an equity gap would just be to raise grades indiscriminately. What are there mechanisms to make sure that sort of thing doesn't occur?
The students' grades aren't what are considered here. It's going to be testing. Largely how the students are doing on the state test. So we can't arbitrarily increase those performances. So yes, you're absolutely right. We can artificially close the gap, and we could potentially even artificially close the gap in graduation, but we try not to.
Okay, thanks.
Because that would be probably illegal, and I don't want to do that. Okay, so this shows a little bit of change from last year too, because so each one of our schools in our supervisory union is listed in this chart. So the on the far left hand side in that column, you will see the student group name that the state monitors as for equity supports in case there is a performance gap that is significant between non-free and reduced lunch students and free and reduced lunch students, African American students and non-African American students, and so forth. So as a supervisory union, we have two gaps that the state found. We have a gap in Hispanics and non-Hispanics, as well as historically marginalized students. Historically marginalized is a category that was created by Vermont because our schools are typically very small, and in order for you to receive the title funds, you have to, when you're creating your student cells or your student groups, you have to have 25 students in a group for it to count towards your accountability. For within Vermont, you only need to have 12 students in order for it to show up. Doesn't always count, but it'll show up as a way that you are being measured. And so there are also two kind of like, I don't even know what to call, like slightly orange, tan, maybe, nuns within the supervisory union column. It's because those were equity 1 last year, but they're not equity 1 this year. So we got so those gaps are close enough. We need to do the research to find out if that's because rising tide lifts all boats, or if it went the other direction. So we that is information that we have to work on internally. But you will also see that the reddish ones, or the rust ones, is among the Hispanics, and it's at every one of our schools. So that's a new equity one. So that's going to be one that I'm going to have to work with the state to understand where that's coming from. So for the most part, we really need to keep an eye out on the like I said, because Hispanic is at every campus. And last year OCA did not have any, and they have 2 this year. So that's going to be something that we are going to also have to look at and make sure that we include it in our continuous improvement plan. And then that's because it's just a snapshot. I wanted to, it's like I said, literally hot off the presses, came out from the state today. And so had already been logging in that data because they released it to superintendents last week. And I just wanted to make sure that we had something so you would know that that's what's going on. So congratulations, you are meeting the standard supervisory union.
Great. Questions for Renee? I can't see anybody online, so.
Oh, sorry.
No, that's okay.
Oh, that's, I'm doing this too.
All right, well, we thank you for that. That's good news.
I
Oh, you do?
Sure.
I asked if you had questions. Yeah, sorry.
I
Okay.
just wanted to know about the demographics of Hispanics in the district. Is that a change that's sudden, or was it anticipated? I can't remember from the demographics
Well,
study.
that is why I need to find out. I need to find out specifically if that equity support is going to be based on the typically the 12, or if it's just based on our Hispanic performance versus non-Hispanic performance. Because I am going to again appreciate the state that if, like, let's say for example we have 5 Hispanic students on a campus, typically that's not going to be measured. It'll be lumped in with our historically marginalized students. But if they are saying that 5 students is enough to trigger an equity 1, then we have to be prepared for that, which is, that's news to me that anything less than 12 would be considered. So just need to follow up with them to understand that.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? All right, well, thank you for that. We will move on to our next presentation, which is the overview of human resources and hiring practices.
Okay, I will.
You're driving.
I'm driving.
You're a good driver, Renee.
Well, then let me.
Do you want me to sit over there to monitor the other computer? Would that be
No, I
helpful?
think I can, let me see if I can do it from here, because I was able to share from my computer. So that should be fine then.
You did. Good for you. You're welcome.
Oh.
What?
What is that?
Yeah. I think the other one, the other container's still in there.
No, there you go.
Okay. There we go, I guess. Brian, can you see the presentation?
I can see the presentation, yes.
Okay, awesome, thank you.
All right, so I am Brooke Donlan. I'm the Human Resources Coordinator for Rutland Northeast Supervisory Union. And I'm going to talk a little bit of an overview around human resources, but really drive into the talent acquisition aspect of my position, which is around our hiring. So this bullet right here kind of goes over the overview of the presentation. So we're going to talk about the talent acquisition, we're going to talk about operational compliance, some labor relations, and then employee support. But the mission of Human Resources for Rutland Northeast is to implement strategies that support the district objectives and foster a positive, inclusive work environment.
And Brooke, don't you have, do you have a definitions page at the end?
All the way at the end.
Yeah, so if, like, there will be some initialisms and things like that that you may see on there that
Mhm.
are also going to be listed at the end.
Yeah, so there's an acronym key for you to follow.
I'm not sure why my computer does that, but it likes to, it thinks it's a typewriter.
So the hiring process, we have a hiring manual, and that is rolling out this year as an expectation to all of our supervisors and hiring leads. We rolled it out last year as a draft, kind of use as a guide and provide feedback, but this year with the FY27 hiring season, it is going to be an expectation. So with the hiring, it is a partnership, and there is a split of roles and responsibilities. It is a partnership between myself, the administrator, who is typically the principal, and then the superintendent. That hiring committee is about a 30-page document, and it is linked at the end of this, so if you'd like to deep dive in, feel free. But I've condensed it down into about 6 slides. So a lot of information, but condensed down to make this efficient for you. So the first phase is actually defining the need and then going out to recruit. So we define the need in identifying what the position is. So a lot of our positions are apples to apples. So we have a teacher who leaves the district, we need to hire another teacher. So it's very easy. We review the job description, we identify the knowledge, the skills, and behavior characteristics, qualification for those roles. We adjust job descriptions if we need to, and ensure that we're staying within the budgetary confines. Sometimes not. Typically, we may look at reallocating a position. Maybe the role is no longer needed and we might have a need elsewhere. And in doing that, we work in collaboration to ensure, again, that we're within the budget confines and creating a job description that aligns. Once we have that job description and the needs identified, we'll then go out to our advertising avenues. So internal postings are shared with our union presidents who share with their membership specifically. We also share internal postings with our school secretaries who then will post visibly within the schools so the community can see those openings. And then we move to a online platform posting mechanism. School Spring is our primary source. We use Handshake, which is specific to universities, so trying to grab those recent grads that are coming out of education fields. And Handshake, we specifically target the Northeast coast. So we are kind of connected with about 84 universities. Generally, we will use Indeed for positions that are maybe not school-based driven. So you'll see that for custodians or bus drivers, secretaries. And then rarely we do a local press, and those are your newspapers, but we still do use that as a platform. The visual on the top just talks about kind of the overview of the recruitment process, and we'll get into that as we go through.
Oops.
So once we have the need identified and we've posted, we move into the committee creation and the screening process. And this is driven by that school principal or administrator. So they're creating their committees. In our committee creation, we do like to have the supervisor of the role and then a teacher or a support personnel that is going to be working with that individual specifically. The committee, we will be asking them to take some additional trainings. So they need to take a training on conducting interviews, and that is specifically to educate the committee members on bias and also non-discriminatory practices. They will be signing a confidentiality covenant of hiring. Basically, that is just protecting the applicants that apply and ensuring that the process is consistent and confidential, meaning that anything that is talked about within the committee stays within the committee, and anything about any of the applicants isn't shared with other community members or other members of Rutland Northeast, so it protects the integrity of our hiring process. And then lastly, they will need to disclose any conflicts that they may have with any of the applicants. So we are a small community. We know that people know each other, but if there are any close relationships, a person may be asked to kind of leave the committee. Once the committee is formed, they will use a screening tool to vet out applications that have been submitted through School Spring. And the screening tool really dives down into the qualifications of the role and the top knowledge, skills, and behavior characteristics that we're looking for that role. And the screening tool is going to narrow down the applicant pool to determine who we should bring in for interviews. So then we are into the interview experience, and again there is a rubric that the committee is going to have to use for their scoring of question and answering, and then also just some behavior and characteristics while they are interacting with the interviewee. Golden rule is that we want the interviewer to only be talking 25% of the time. The questions should be giving the interviewee the opportunity to drive that conversation and really sell who they are. We have some best practices and turn-offs of the interview process in the hiring manual. This is beefed up and gives a pretty good support system to the committee. And then just we really alert on the bias alert of the halo and horn effect, of just not judging an applicant on one or good bad trait, and being aware of that. And then this just kind of gives you a little bit of the legal guardrails and the scoring criteria. Again, the rubric is pretty hefty, so you can look at that in the manual as well, but we also have our discrimination red flags that the committee cannot ask about age, religion, race, health issues, different things along those lines. So once the committee has met after all of the interviews, they will compile their scores based on the rubric, and they should come out with a top 1 to 2 candidate that they would like to move on to the reference check phase. Reference checks are required for all of our applicants. We do require 3. The most recent supervisor needs to be contacted by phone. Obviously, sometimes we understand that may not be feasible, so you can email for a reference check as well. Internal candidates that do apply are given first consideration. We do not require outside reference checks for our internal candidates, but we do have our hiring lead review the applicant's personnel file, and they need to talk to the current supervisor within the district. And again, there's a tool for the reference checks as well. So after reference checks, we typically have one candidate that comes forward for nomination. So the hiring committee and the supervisor and principals do not have the authority to offer employment in our district. That that responsibility and ownership is with our superintendent. So what they do is set a nomination forward. With our licensed professionals, we have an official form of nomination that they must submit that gives an overview of the entire hiring process. Non-licensed employees, they will send me an email, and then both roles must include all application rubrics and notes that they have through the hiring process. So I take that review and then preliminarily place the candidates on salary schedules, look at their credentials, look at licensing, and present that to the superintendent for consideration. The superintendent will meet with the licensed candidate in a final interview and final offer. And non-licensed, I will present the information to him and get his approval for hire. So once we have the approval, the official offer is made, and the applicant has accepted, we move into the orientation and onboarding phase. And that is when I reach out to the applicant. We send electronic welcome packets and contracts. We set up a orientation to meet, and that orientation can look different depending on the role and also the time of year. So it can be a one-to-one, it can be a group orientation, it could also be in person or via Google. Once that orientation is complete, and that is basically a paperwork benefit review of all of the benefits and paperwork that's required for the role. Once that is completed, the employee needs to return the forms, and we are sort of stalled in the process until they do that. So a accepted contract and criminal record check must come back to me to be able to process before we move on to the next stages of employment. So once that is returned, and a criminal record check is ran and there are no concerns, an employee will then be welcomed into the system. They will receive their email, their Rutland Northeast email, their ID badge access, which is their access to their school site. We set them up on multiple platforms for access. They get their invitations for Vector Solutions, which is a mandatory training platform we use. They are welcomed through ReadySub, which is a platform to request leave, Employee Navigator for their benefits, and then also their test account for timesheets. So they get a lot of access supports. And then we move them into the school atmosphere, which they are then locally oriented with any orientations that need to happen locally. And then this piece is kind of that overview, just another graphic of once that nomination hits to the central office, it goes to the superintendent, the offer is made, and then we talk about the safety and compliance aspects. And all of the pieces in our hiring process adhere to our existing policies that are cited there. These are just some numbers for you. So it takes about an average of 2 hours of processing time once the nomination comes to central office. So that is meeting with the employees, processing paywork, setups, coordination with the business office. So each hire takes about 2 hours after the interview process. And those are our hiring trends for the past couple of years. So this year we are on track for about 61 new hires or transfers. That means people moving within the district from a role to a role. So it could be a para to a teacher, it could be a para from a sped position to a local. And 42 of those are brand new to our district this year. Any questions on the actual bringing an employee in?
Yeah, I have a question about the initial slide with the interview committee on it.
Mm-hmm.
The screening from, of the highly qualified from everyone else, is that done by the human beings on the committee, or is it some kind of AI screening, or?
No, so the screening tool is used, so what the screening tool does is they use the screening tool to identify, based on the job description, the top kind of characteristics, qualifications of the job, key components that they're looking for in an applicant. So
When you say they, who do you mean?
The hiring committee.
Okay.
Yeah, so they'll have the screening tool and they have, does the person need a license? Do they have education background? Do they have knowledge of MTSS or PBIS? Like different things like that, that they dive down into the job description to pull out those key components that they're looking for in the application when they're reviewing it.
Is there room for, I'm a big believer in different life experiences, and, I can imagine somebody who was, in the circus for a decade and but would make a fantastic teacher. Is there a mechanism for saying this person may not have these screening characteristics, but they're worth looking at?
Yeah, so we have one it's basically called like community, so kind of like different so experiences or communities, so different type of aspects. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Any other questions on that? All right, so the reverse is offboarding.
There it is.
Thanks for driving. So we have offboarding, so we have employees that are leaving our district as well. So last year we saw 26 employees leave the district. Those departures come in an array of reasons. So it could be resignation, retirements, reduction in force, non-renewals, or separations of employment. And it's basically a reverse of the hire. So we receive a resignation letter. We do send exit surveys and offer exit interview opportunities. I work with the business office on the reconciliation of pay and benefits and issue COBRA, which is continuation of benefit opportunities. And then we turn all of their access off. So their email access is shut off, their computers are returned, keys are returned, and ID badges are all shut off as well. So moving away from the hiring and talking about just a few other components of HR, I am responsible for the educator quality, which is our licensing for our teachers and administrators, and then the highly qualified status of our para-educators. So specifically our licensed professionals, I do have to verify annually their license credentials and ensuring that it is aligning with the criteria or the subject area in which they are teaching. And I do manage the temporary licenses for the district. Those are provisionals and emergency licenses. I am the superintendent designee. Our provisional license holders, we have about 23 of them, are teaching under the superintendent's license. So it is very important that we monitor those licenses. And I work in conjunction with the principals to ensure that we are seeing forward progress to meet the level 1 requirements. And the principals are capturing that through supervision and evaluation of those license holders. But that is a ranging of a 1 to 3 year window. And you'll see people on temporary licenses for many reasons. So you might have a classroom teacher who wants to try administration. So we could have a temporary license in administration. You could see a teacher that wants to move to a different content area. So they may hold an elementary endorsement, but they want to try science at the high school. So there's an array of reasons why people are on a temporary license. And we do have to annually report to the Agency of Education on the progress of those licenses, and I'm responsible for doing that. And then the flip is our para-educators. We do receive title funding. Because of that title funding, they must meet certain highly qualified criteria, and that is that they have to hold an associate's degree or equivalent coursework. If they do not, they have the opportunity to take the master teacher assessment, and I do proctor that test for them. This is just an overview of our, basically our benefits. So our total rewards programs throughout the district. This is a split kind of administration, myself and the business office. So I'm responsible with educating our employees and promoting all of our benefits. I administer the annual open enrollment as well. And the business office takes care of kind of the deduction setups, the bill reconciliations, and different things on that aspect. And we do use a platform called Employee Navigator for all of our benefit enrollment. So we do that electronically, we do not do it through paper. I've touched on these a little bit, but these are all of the databases that drive our personnel kind of management. So we have our Infinite Visions, this is our payroll system. We have our Vector Solutions, which helps us comply with all of our mandatory trainings that we need to take each year. Employee Navigators for our benefits. ReadySub is used twofold. It's used by the employees to request days off, and then the flip of that is it's used by our substitutes as well to secure coverages. So our substitutes use that. We use School Spring and Handshake, and then we have some external reporting that's not listing all of them, but we have to report through CRDC, which is a federal huge collection of data. We have to report through BSA for some salary surveys, and then we also have Agency of Education reporting. The other huge chunk of my position is around contract management and legal compliance. So the contract management is specifically our union terms and conditions with our teachers and our support staff. I am responsible for issuing our letters of insurance and employment contracts for all of our employees and temporary employees throughout the district, managing their personnel records, the seniority lists and professional development and RIF and non-renewal. Those all feed into compliance with CBA or non-union terms and conditions. Criminal record checks is another ongoing huge lift across the district. We do require all of our employees, volunteers, and chaperones to undergo a criminal record check, and that includes a VCIC subscription and abuse registry checks for our employees too. The other aspect that is kind of this tightrope of compassion and compliance is Vermont parental family leave, and then FMLA and ADA. Those are federal and state laws for compliance. And with all of the contract management and legal compliance, I a lot of times am interacting with our employees in some of their best moments, but also some of their worst moments. And having to ride this fine line of following the rules, but also having the compassion and making sure that they feel heard, supported, and have all the information that they can make the right decisions in those moments. So this part of my position takes a lot of energy. Some of my strategic goals for the future is to have full implementation of our hiring manual. Like I said, it was rolled out last year as a draft. This year we are actually putting it into practice, so I do expect that it's going to change with suggestions once we have the committees that are using it. I would like to start to conduct stay interviews. So we do exit interviews, but I would like to do stay interviews to see why our employees are staying within our district. And how we're retaining them, and then use that to dovetail into our recruiting measures. Renee and I are in the early stages of working on an administrative evaluation handbook. I want to do a job description rotational review, just make sure that they're fresh and up to date. Right now we're pulling job descriptions when we have a opening, but if we can have them on a cyclical cycle, that would be nice. And then again, pushing into making our recruiting more attractive, revamping our benefits into a total rewards strategy. And then this is about me. So these are my involvements and certifications. So I am part of the Act 73 steering committee. I'm one of the HR members that is joining that. I'm certified through the American Association of School Personnel. I am a department of one. And I have been committed to Rutland Northeast for over a decade now. And then the resources and acronyms that we talked about. So all of the links are there that drive all of our hiring procedures, acronyms that are listed in the presentation just for further clarification. And then I just wanted to talk about these two graphics, and then I will open up for any questions. So this graphic here is sort of touches on all aspects of a HR role. In bigger organizations, bigger school districts, you'll actually see one person sitting in every one of those headers, and they will focus in and drive, and that will be their job. So as a department of one, I am scratching the surface of each of those components and pushing into all departments throughout our central office and then our schools. So just an idea of kind of the complexity of an HR role. And then a really nice graphic that talks about our hiring kind of roadmap from phase 1 to phase 3. So prep and then getting them into the classrooms.
Any questions?
Okay, it's gonna be me. The stay interviews intrigue me. Are they gonna be with everyone every year, or?
I haven't vetted out what I would like to do yet. So it's just it's a goal that I have because like Renee was saying, we're exceeding in our retention. We always want to talk to people when they're leaving to find out why they're leaving, but I want to shift that and find out why are you staying, right? Is it salary? Is it benefits? Is it community? Is it camaraderie? What is making our employees stay?
Would there be a ceiling on that? So if somebody's been here for 20 years that you don't need that anymore? Are you more interested in younger people?
I would do it. I would do
Every year's
all of
different.
it. Yeah, why? Every year is going to be different.
Okay.
Everything, yeah.
All right, thanks. It's an intriguing idea.
Yeah.
Sounds like a good one.
Thank you.
Are you trying to say you don't want to know why I'm staying, Kevin?
It's because of me.
Of course it is.
All right, well, thank you very much, Brooke, for that.
Thank you.
Last presentation is our overview of business and finance, food services, and transportation.
Right, look at Barbara. I'm so excited to hear this. I have to be honest, I do feel like I end up on your rotation a lot more than anyone else. So I will try to flip through the slides. You know, none of you are brand new. Leo is the youngest, or the newest. Probably the youngest too. But he hasn't, I'm pretty sure he's probably seen this as well. Are you going to draw
Yeah, I
for
am.
me
You
again?
can go ahead and keep
Thank
introducing.
you.
I want to get the slides rather than doing
So
the video.
as Kevin alluded, I have been here for 30 years.
I didn't mean you.
No, that was fine. Over the years, and I would actually honestly shudder to look at what my job description is as compared to what my job duties are, because I think they don't align anymore, because it hasn't been one that we have kind of updated. So we'll just kind of go over a little bit. There's quite a few slides here, but again, my title is Business and Finance. I will say it's more probably a Chief Operations Officer. But under the business aspect, I am overseeing all of our facilities, our transportation. I do grant management, state, federal, and private, our food service. I am very active in the summer and after school programming, the financing, the scheduling, the planning, and then obviously the curriculum end and the student support end is a collaboration with Debbie and or preschools and Brian, who was in the corner at one point. And then we also have kind of this sort of other things like we have the Ely Trust Fund, we have the Burdett Fund, we have some investments, we have some compliance with laws and regulations. I'm often involved in legal and risk management because they go hand in hand. So risk management is insurance, legal is making sure that if something's going on, I know about it so we can make sure that we do the proper notification under insurance so that we have the coverage that we need.
That, and you're also like the historian. You remember.
Because I've been here for 30
You have
years.
been here for 30 years, so it's really important for us to draw on your knowledge.
And then, of course, finance. So these are just a picture of our buildings. So our facility team, we have district-wide facility team as well as facility teams in each of our schools. Every one of our schools has a head custodian, and all but OCA also have a team of support. From the district-wide level, we have a facility manager and transportation coordinator. I think you've heard of him, Rich Vigu. And we have a full-time district-wide maintenance, but he's also our on-call sort of custodial substitute. And then we have an administrative assistant shared with transportation that kind of support this team. We oversee the operational plans for each of our schools, including updating and reviewing. We also support the ongoing facility issues and the problems that arise. You all remember that we spent a lot of time, maybe you don't remember, in Leicester with PFASs. We do essential lead maintenance, PCB testing, I dare not say the M word, but we also take care of those type of things. We coordinate the projects, including budgets, timelines, permitting, professional services, and most importantly, I'm kind of there to make sure that the contracts are in our best interest, that our vendors comply with them, and that our procurement follows the state of Vermont bidding law, any grant requirements or construction and bonding, voting. I'll be overseeing all of that. And we do have 2 houses. These are rented. They're considered they're called license agreements because they are not a tenant landlord agreement. It's an employee-employer agreement. And we have one at Barstow and one at Pittsford, where an employee lives there at for the benefit of us. They do also pay a fair rent for the facility. And then I work, this shouldn't say with Tyler anymore because Tyler's not here, but we are reinstituting a security and emergency planning district-wide committee because we used to have one person and that was grant funded and has been reduced. So I will work with Debbie and our principals to come up with that. I always like this picture of the aerial view of the high school with all of our solar panels, and then you can see the central office up there in the corner. Again, just another look at the other ones of our buildings. Oops.
Whoops.
Colby is now the host.
Chloe kicked me off.
How does the solar do in terms of?
Solar's great, actually. In the summertime, we would have almost nothing of a bill. And we have it organized such that if it were actually to go negative, it carries forward. Mm-hmm. And if it were to go negative enough, it would offset other sites. It doesn't do quite that well. Mm-hmm. It went in 2015. So we are halfway through its sort of useful life. Mm-hmm. So we're not seeing the same outputs that we once saw. But they definitely are paying for themselves, and we've seen that in our electric consumption.
Do we have a plan of like what we do when they've exceeded their lifespan? Do we?
We currently do not have a plan. A good question though that people often ask me is, so we own our solar arrays, so we get the full benefit of them. So we didn't purchase a share in a solar farm, mm-hmm. where, and we've talked about that at the board level, but when you purchase a share in a solar farm, you're committing the school for 20 years, and you're getting whatever benefit they might have. Where when you purchase your own solar array, you get 100% of that benefit. Mm-hmm. So we have always chosen to do that. We haven't really thought about what happens, but we are, just now kind of in the mid-year of its life. I oversee transportation. Transportation includes coming to and from school, field trips, co-curricular events. We have approximately 25 drivers. We might be down to 22. We continue to struggle with drivers. We do have a couple of substitutes that work almost regularly. And then we have 5 plus or minus bus monitors. We do not have a bus monitor on every bus. These are positions that are really challenging to find. And they're really difficult because the hours are not convenient, right? You start first thing in the morning, then you're done from 8 until 2, and then you're expected to come back in the afternoon. So our best investment has been in paraeducators, who are paraeducators by day, if you will, and then they stay on and also act as bus monitors. We love them because not only are they a good investment, but they've been trained as paraeducators during the day. They know our systems, they know our schools, they know our people, and they're fabulous monitors. But it's for a long day, and it's not right for everyone. And so we do continue to struggle with both drivers and monitors. We have a fleet of 30 buses, including 28 full-size buses, a van, and a small bus that we now use mainly for maintenance. Again, we provide daily to and from school vocational runs to both Stafford and Hannaford, And then during the day, we have a lot of shuttles. We run food between Neshabie and Otter Valley North and Sudbury and Whiting, Caverly. We run, we have students who work and help carry mail as part of their program between facilities. Sometimes they are working in jobs in the community. We oversee all of that, working very, very closely with Brian and his team. We also oversee homeless transportation, and homeless transportation is, a real challenge. We recognize that these students, these families are in very difficult situations, and they have, they're temporarily displaced out of our community, and they have chosen to stay in our community for education. So we work really diligently to try to get them into our schools on time, but it is costly because everybody starts at the same time, and finding the resources of people to, maybe go to Rutland and bring the students in so that they don't miss any time becomes a challenge, but we do the best we can. We're constantly working on that. To and from trips, usually our bus routes, they may change daily with our ridership, but the general route does not change. We work hard on recruitment and retention. We do provide staff with training, or anyone who's interested in becoming a bus driver, we would be happy to train them, bring them on board, help them use our equipment to get licensed. We pay for all of that. We oversee the fleet maintenance, repair, and replacement, including the bus bids, the financing. You guys get to see me every year when I come with that for you to consider. And then they also have a role to play both in safety and emergency planning, so they're required to have so many drills per year. We like to do it at the school so that not just riders on the bus understand how to exit the bus in an emergency, but every child does, because every student might be on it if it's a field trip versus to and from school. Grants management, I work very closely with the Assistant Superintendent of CIA, Debbie, and Brian, the Director of Special Services, and Alexis, Information Technology Director, as well as their team to apply, manage, coordinate, and make sure that we are aligning our expenditures with their restrictions and requirements. Various different grants will have different rules on procurement, how to purchase it, what we need to do for purchase, as well as different rules and requirements on auditing, when we have to audit, if there's personnel involved, if there are vendors, if there's construction, and making sure that we're compliant in all of those things. Monitoring and assuring compliance with federal and state grants is one of the most expensive components of doing that. And they come with severe penalties if we make an error, because they usually come with payback penalties. So we do monthly reports, annual assurances to grantors, annual audits, and making sure that we timely submit for reimbursement or advances depending on the program, so that we have the resources to actually do the events. Oops, wrong way.
Sorry.
That's okay. So these are our entitled grants. We get these every year. This is the budget right now. This is what we have this year. These are the federal grants. So the first two, as we know, there's a lot of conversation at the federal level about the Agency of Education. There is broad across the aisle support for the first two. IDEA, Individual with Disabilities Education Act, Part B. There's broad support, but the funding and the amounts is uncertain. There's also broad support in Title I grants, again, but the funding and the amounts are uncertain. This year, Title V, which as you can see, IV, which as you can see is a smaller amount. Less chatter about that at the federal level. And at the beginning of this year, Title IIA was one of the grants that the federal level had committed to and pulled back, and then lost and had to release. So as you kind of go down that list is how we kind of lose predictability about the stability of those funds in the future. The history over the last many, many years is generally those numbers stay fairly flat, which when they are being used to support costs are rising, and Revenues are flat, so that means, in essence, the grants are not covering as much as they used to. We have to make the painful decision about either moving those costs into the budget or deciding not to have those costs. The first two are entitlement costs that are specific to students with special needs. So we have less flexibility if those funds were to be eliminated. The next one, Title I grants, is our compensatory. We primarily fund our interventionist, so that their role is to help students academically, and in the elementary schools, we save all of those funds to target that early intervention that may not be on an IEP, may not be at the level where they need specialized instruction, but they need targeted academic intervention.
The title grants are the ones that I mentioned earlier in the accountability presentation. So those are the ones that, so all that money that flows into Vermont, that's why we have an accountability system, is to make sure that we're using those grants appropriately.
And Brooke also mentioned that because of the Title I grants, we have the requirement for highly qualified paraeducators as well. And I think the state has every requirement for highly qualified licensed staff. Then there are state grants. These are not entitled. Well, some of them are entitled. Some of them are based on reimbursements. So the top three, almost $4 million, is in special education. And so the EEE grant is an entitlement based on enrollment. The special ed or SPED, extraordinary reimbursement, is based on services, and these are defined to help support high cost students, extraordinary cost students. The trigger is $65,000 per student. So students that cost more than $65,000 to educate for their special education alone component fall under this reimbursement. So you spend it, you get reimbursed on that. I work very closely with the SPED team to get every dollar that we're entitled to there. And then the SPED Census Block Grant, people might have heard of this at one point as Act 173. And this is now based on enrollment as well. One of the things that you may or may not remember, or you may or may not have paid attention to, the fine-tunedness of the foundation formula. But the foundation formula that Act 73 put into play does not address special education and these resources, special education and transportation. It doesn't address those, and it knows that it needs to, but it hasn't yet. And one of the things that's really challenging right now is, with the exception of the extraordinary reimbursement, the special education money comes based on enrollment. And this is enrollment of kids. It doesn't recognize needs, it doesn't recognize any of the other students with disabilities. It doesn't recognize the extent of their abilities. So if you're a larger district, you get a larger grant. If you're a smaller district, you get a smaller grant. And they know that that's a flaw in the system. It's been a flaw since Act 173 was implemented. And I appreciated when you mentioned this last night, Kevin. It's been stagnant as the legislature has been working through their vision of Act 73. They haven't addressed some of these other errors that they know still exist, these equity issues that still exist. So that I expect will change, but right now it is a significant amount of resources that we receive. Transportation aid, we get approximately 45% of our transportation to and from school costs back, and we get vocational transportation reimbursements based on the number of students and the miles that we are going to both Stafford and Hannaford. And then we have these two smaller Vermont grants that are pretty standard every year, but there will be a handful of others that kind of come and go. So the top two are really, I don't want to say they're somewhat entitled, like the EEE grant and the SPED Census Block Grant are entitled, and the other three are entitled but based on a reimbursement based on cost. And that says the same thing. The other little weird thing we get is mostly for Chittenden and Goshen, they own some forest lands, and we get some payment in lieu of taxes for the national forest that exists in those communities. So Barstow gets approximately $25,000 to $28,000 annually because of those lands in Chittenden. And we get at Otter Valley approximately $2,000 to $6,000. So not a lot, but there is some forest lands in Goshen. I actually think there might even be a few acres in Brandon.
Lester too, right?
And maybe Lester, yeah. And then there's MAC funds, which is a type of Medicaid that helps support wellness activities. We spend it mostly on student engagement and wellness and nursing supports. And then the Best in the Act 250 grants, which is really about PBIS and supporting students SEL in every day. And then Medicaid grants, this is going to change. This is, we know it's going to change. We don't know what or how it's going to change. We earn approximately $250,000 annually, and it is a fee-for-services model right now based on special education usage. So when we write an IEP, we can submit for reimbursement. When a paraeducator is working one-on-one with a student, we can submit for a reimbursement. So think of like that medical model where we do a service and we get paid. That is changing. We don't fully know what that's going to change. We're predicting that it will be fairly level, but we're a little insecure because we just don't know the new rules that will go into play in July. Food service. So this is another one. People love it and we hate it, both at the same time. We do have a couple of programs. We service universal meals. The state does as a whole. We have what's considered a CEP program, which means community eligible program, which means all of our students, regardless of their personal income, are eligible for free meals. The state covers the cost of reduced meals. We contract service, and that means we have to manage the contract. We have to review the contract. It is bid out every 5 years. This year in the fall, our vendor sold to another vendor. And so we were a little concerned about that. It also takes about 90 to 180 days to go through the bidding process and new contract renewal. So we decided to wait, see how they're doing this year. We have some mechanisms to be involved and call meetings to work with the contractor to make sure that they are meeting our needs. We submit monthly claims for reimbursement. We have a fresh fruit and vegetable program in our elementary schools, every one of them. So they bring fresh fruits and vegetables into the classrooms in the afternoons or sometimes in the morning. We have to do a lot in regards to annual verification and working with free and reduced students because these numbers are important for Act 127 and counting our pupils. They go into our student information system and help populate our weighted pupils. So we do spend a lot of time making sure those numbers are as accurate as possible. It is a federal program, not covered by Agency of Education, actually Agency of Agriculture. But there is a significant amount of financial reporting, and it's one of the most bureaucratic programs, quite honestly. But we also receive about $750,000 a year in that in reimbursements. So it is a significant program. And then I work very closely with the whole team, the principals and Debbie and pre-K about contracted services with our Boys and Girls Club. We are in last year, fiscal year 2025 was year 1 of the program. We are in year 2 of the program. It is a self-sustaining program. So right now it is providing services at no cost to us. And so I work with them on the contract management. We also do things to support what we might do in the summer. So in the summertime, we offer food, so we provide food to those programs as well. Yeah. And then I kind of oversee the investing of some of these programs. The Ely Trust, we actually hire an outside investor, but I do review the monthly and quarterly reports, monitor the investments for compliance with our policy. I work with our attorney when needed. We do have to file a trust account, so every year we work with an accountant to do that. The Ely Trust is limited for the benefit of the Brandon Graded School, so really Neshabie. The Birded Trust, we coordinate annual payments and withdrawals with the Pittsford town offices for commitments that have been made over the years. We work with attorneys as needed, and have done a lot on that. Since we've merged under Act 46, until the football, the varsity field lights, we had not had a new payment from the Birded Trust. It does require a majority vote of the board of Otter Valley, a unanimous vote of Otter Valley Pittsford members, and a unanimous vote of the select board. It is managed by the trustees of public funds, so they actually hold the assets, invest them, and do all of that, and then we coordinate expenditures or payments from it. There's also the Barstow Endowment Enrichment Funds, and we monitor the investments, coordinate the payments. And then we do have some smaller scholarships that are awarded every year at the mostly for Otter Valley and some for Barstow that were awarded at the end of the year for graduating seniors. Compliance with laws and regulations. We work very closely with Brooke. These are what I call alphabet soup. Americans with Disability Act, Workers' Comp, Family Medical Leave, Vermont Parental Leave Act, Fair Labor Standards Act. Sometimes they overlap, sometimes they stand on their own, but we are responsible for compliance with each of those, as well as our contracts and our support terms and conditions, as well as Title 16. Brooke indicated that our provisional and emergency licenses fall under Renee's, and we value our responsibility to make sure Renee's license is protected. So we take that very, very seriously. And then there's some federal compliance standards that are specific and limited to construction, like the Davis-Bacon Act, about reasonable and necessary and applicable. And legal. So we work with our attorneys. We also work with Visbit, our insurance company, which is a self-insured pool of Vermont schools. They will review contracts for us for free. I, am the one who will make the contact for the insurance when we have to make a claim, when we are looking at new policies or procedures, if it needs a legal interpretation. Again, general policies, review, compliance, and or amendments. Our 2 license agreements, as well as leasing. We do lease our buses, we lease our copiers. Technically, the solar array at Otter Valley is a performance lease. And then I make sure that if we're going out for bonding, we meet all of the bonding and legal requirements, which are exhaustive. And you won't get a bond if you miss any one of them. So we'll make sure I work very closely with Melinda and our team to make sure that we hit all of those when we go out for bonds. And again, risk management is the main contact with the insurance company. That includes, always thinking about monitoring and reviewing our risks, making decisions about what risks are that we should consider being steering away from. Bonfires, one of the things that I like. I'm kind of the killer of fun. Yeah. bonfires, those type of playground inspections, making sure that we have adequate surfacing, and making sure that our facility team kind of understands what to look for in playgrounds, because playgrounds can be a very dangerous place. So here's our team. There's 4 of us. Well, there's 4 in addition to me, so I guess there's 5 of us. My assistant finance director, Laura Jacobowski. We were very lucky to steal her. She was me at Slate Valley 100 years ago when they were still Addison Rutland Supervisory Union. Pam Parker has been here almost as long as I am. I think she's 6 months less than me, but she is the main bookkeeper for the high school, Rutland Northeast, which includes all of the federal funds and OCA. Then there is, and she also does payroll, and she and Laura oversee and work closely with me on food service. Barbara Phillips is finance admin assistant and payroll coordinator. She's really 100% responsible for setting up each person's pay, their benefits, their enrollment. She works very closely with Brooke on all of that. And then many of you have probably met Kayla. She's at our front desk, and she is the bookkeeper for our elementary schools, Lothrop, Barstow, and Neshabie. So what do we do? I think you know all of this because you hear all of this from me regularly, but finances, planning, and preparing, and budgeting. But we also oversee procurement, purchasing. We make sure that POs are used according to policy. We have the ability to use P cards, which are a fancy word for credit cards, contract compliance, payroll and HR processing. People are really happy when they get paid timely and accurately. We manage the district cash flows. Sometimes our expenditures exceed the timeline of when our funds come in, specifically in the summertime. So we make sure that we have resources to cover cash flows. I work very closely with the school secretaries on student activity accounting. I work very closely with Renee and our attorney on negotiations and support. And then we try to do bulk buying whenever we can. And then, I have to be almost done. And then there's a lot of monitoring. You hear from me a lot. So there are all of these different monitoring reports that are directly linked to things that fall under this umbrella. Financial reports are provided monthly, monitoring reports throughout the year, 2.3, 2.4, 2.6, and 3.2. In September, we review the student activities from the prior year. November to December, we work on the budget development. December, we talk about the internal controls and the certification, and we're still working on budgets. Our audits are done between July and December. We review them with you formally in March at the reorganization meeting when you have a new board. And then in the spring, we'll talk to you about summer facility plans, actions, and if we need authorization. We switched it a little bit here and asked you to authorize things in the fall so that we could get bids. But should those bids not come in where we need to, we'll be back to you in the spring to talk about whether you want to move forward with them or what your thoughts are and what our recommendations are. And then late in the spring, we kind of review our estimated general fund balances and make recommendations and ask you for your pleasure on what you might want to do in regards to transferring any surpluses to any of our reserve funds. We have 2 reserve funds in both districts. One is an after-school fund. At Barstow, we have the authority to open one. They have not yet done that. We do have an after-school fund at Otter Valley. And then we have, both districts have a reserve fund for facilities, buildings, and grounds that is reserved for capital improvements in those areas.
You're off by one.
Any questions for Brenda?
Well, this isn't a question, but this reminded me to thank you, which I hadn't done, for your guidance during the negotiations process.
Oh,
which
you're
was,
welcome.
Critical.
Thank you for joining it.
Oh, yeah.
Can I ask a question?
No.
That's fine.
What is it?
I just wondered what that forest fund, do they specify like how you can use that?
No,
Wow.
No. No, there's no limits on that.
Okay, any other questions? All right, then we're gonna move on. Trainings and conferences. One of the things that came up, Debbie Singheiser, who's not here right now, wanted us to consider having policy governance rehearsals. Those of us who have been in policy governance for a long time will remember that when we first started, we would have rehearsals, kind of like scenarios of what ifs and how we would deal with those things for under policy governance. She wanted to know if we wanted to do that here at this board. So I'm putting it out to you.
Well, potentially, but maybe could we postpone answering that question until she's here and could say
Sure.
more about it?
Yeah, okay.
She's
You
the,
want to do that? Is that all right with you, Leo?
Yeah, I agree.
she's
Okay.
the policy governance goddess, and I feel like she could.
Okay, so we'll hold that off until next meeting. Okay. Also for your, if you are so inclined, next Thursday, February 26th at 6 o'clock is the continuation of the 25-26 policy governance virtual forum. We have paid up for that entire series, and so if you're so inclined, you can jump in and participate in that next Thursday. Okay, moving on. Monitoring Report 2.7, compensation and benefits. Can I get someone to make a motion, please?
I move we approve, I'm sorry, I don't remember the number.
2.7.
2.7.
Okay, Kevin, is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Barbara. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of 2.7 compensation and benefits, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed?
Aye.
Oh, sorry, Leo. All those opposed? Okay, 2.7 passes. Let's see, governing style. We also have our board policy monitoring report 4.4, the chair's role. That should have been in your packet. Is there anything we need to change in that to going forward?
Probably dates. And I'm not, and I don't have it in front of me, so I'm assuming dates and.
That's okay. I think Renee's looking for it.
Yeah, in the packet, trying to get to it.
Oh, wait, there it is. It's like page 71 in the supplemental documents.
Thank you. That speeds up my,
There you go.
Research.
yep.
Oh, yeah, time period being monitored. That we'll wanna.
Well, yeah, we always change that. That gets changed.
That one didn't get changed the last time
that's
around.
true,
'cause it
you're
says
right.
23 to 24. I'm like,
That's true. That should, that's an automatic, but yeah, it should be an automatic.
sorry, I just lost it.
Sorry.
Oh, yeah. Oh, thanks.
Not sure why it does that when I have a screen.
Yeah, that is weird. But
Yeah, it's not an Acrobat, it's just kind of like a preview, a PDF, and it does that little typewriter thing.
I mean, nothing jumps out.
I didn't see anything.
I don't see anything.
Okay. What about you, Leo? Did you see anything?
No.
Okay.
Nothing to change.
Perfect. Then we will move on, but we'll make sure we change the dates. We need to hold off on the policy for action on our agenda that's for the selection of library materials because Otter Valley Unified has not looked at that yet. They will do that at their next meeting. Next is our superintendent evaluation findings and recommendations. So our evaluation for the superintendent is always done in our monitoring reports. I did not hear back from anybody that had anything specific that they wanted to say to Renee about his performance, but I think we can all say that he's done a fantastic job pulling us all together, and as evidenced by our movement in the snapshot and by the fact that he's doing lots of work in the legislature and at the AOE office. So we really thank you for being here with us.
Thank you, it's my pleasure.
And if anybody else has anything to say.
It's a great time to be a superintendent, huh?
Hey,
There you go.
I am actually one who is okay with the number of superintendents being reduced, so.
Okay.
I'm okay with
That's-
that.
Yeah, well, it's nice having you, so hopefully you're not gone because of this.
Whatever
Okay.
number.
We'll talk more about superintendent in executive session. Advocacy. So, do you want to talk about any
Yeah.
of this in particular?
So the first thing is, as I mentioned, we were able to go public with our receiving the rural career connected collaborative with Transcend. It is a program that is going to last 15 months. It's going to enable us to have effectively a coach or a set of coaches work with our teachers or administrators of Otter Valley, help us create a kind of a roadmap of how we want to do our college and career or have college and career expectations for our students that are currently in the building, but also create a system that can filter out to Barstow, that can filter to our elementary schools in 6th grade, to make sure that we're having the conversations early on so that our students are aware of the options that they have. As our state is trying to figure itself out, but also really trying to connect students with careers, connect students with colleges. I think it's incumbent upon us as the K through 12 environment or pre-K through 12 environment to make sure that we're doing our part in preparing them. One other thing that I would like to suggest or mention that I don't think I mentioned in other settings is that there were 130 applicants for these slots, and we were one of 10 that were selected. And so I think it's really important to acknowledge, and I think I said this in the superintendent announcements, that the team that we were able to pull together to work on the application and then also to sit through the interview really impressed Transcend, and I'm just happy that we were able to bring this to the district. The things that I think the total value of this fellowship, which is a lot of in-kind services and also the ability for professional development, whether it's them flying a group of people out or some of them coming in, is close to $250,000. So we're excited about that.
Great.
Oh, the other piece, and it also goes along with the superintendent announcements. Many of the things that are listed after that within advocacy, these are things that just really recommend that you keep an eye on because it changes daily. And so there are a lot of different ideas floating around the legislature right now, and so and also even within our central office to try to figure out how we can advocate for our students, because I'm not sure that there's anybody speaking up for us. So it's really up to us to make sure that the state knows that we're here and that we're the home of Brigham, and we want to make sure that that isn't ever too far from their minds.
Okay.
That's a great point.
Yep. Cool. All right. So I think that brings us down to OVUU, BUU board updates. Leo, do you want to do a BUU update?
Not much to share. We were just preparing mostly for our annual meeting.
Okay. Great. And an OVUU board report?
Nothing going on there.
Yeah, nothing.
Really boring.
Yeah.
So uneventful. Yeah.
Okay. Well, we're also getting ready for our annual meeting, and we also have been going out to the local select boards to let them know about our annual report and what our budget looks like. And we just had our legislators come down yesterday and talk to us. So,
Annual report that came in the mail looks really nice.
oh, great.
And I've heard from someone else who shared that.
Oh,
Wanted me to
great.
pass that along.
That's good news.
I did get a complaint that the print's too small in places.
Yeah, I got the same thing.
Oh.
So,
And that's good feedback, right? So
Yeah.
we can improve upon that for next year.
there's also some people who would like to see data around how our students are doing in the annual report. I indicated that we didn't have that information available at the time of printing, but I don't know if we want to be a year behind.
So, yeah, I mean, we can easily do that. I don't think it's Brenda, do you know, it's not a requirement to have it in the annual report, but
No, it's a
we.
requirement to report it annually, but not in the
Yeah.
annual report.
Okay.
We did talk about, I mean, it just came out, right?
Yeah.
Right. No, right. Well, that's
We
just
went
that.
to printers 3 weeks ago.
Well, that's why I'm saying if you put it in the annual report, it's going to be last year's information. It won't be. So, anyways, just something to think about. Okay.
We can find a way to put it up on our website right now so that it's easy to find.
Can
Okay.
we send out a postcard or something, or hit all of the social medias that it's up?
Yeah.
Okay. Superintendent announcements.
Let's see. I mean, I've mentioned the kind of the big things that are important, and that's really about it.
All right. Well, then, if there's nothing else to talk about at this time, I would entertain going into executive session at 7:08 in order to talk about the superintendent's contract.
So moved.
Okay.
You
Okay.
want me in or out?
Oh, with Brenda here, yes, but everybody else unfortunately needs. Well, not unfortunately, but everybody else needs to.
Fortunately.
Well, maybe. I don't know. I'm not sure which way. But anyway, everyone else has to leave. But that'll be the end of our meeting. So,
Okay.
thank you for
so-
coming.